regular fall session, it really now looks like that window is a very little chance that that the US semester will go on as planned. So obviously there is a shift of students who are planning for the US, but now are probably going to other countries. And you're right, Canada, in spite of being a neighbor of the United States, have really controlled the virus much better than the US. And also they have been very proactive in terms of their own immigration policies, government policies in terms of foreign students coming over to study there in the middle of the pandemic. And I think we will spend a couple of minutes later on in our session on immigration policies, etc. So we will come back to that. But yes, Australia is the winner. New Zealand obviously was one of the first countries to eradicate the virus, so some of the traffic will get diverted there for sure. So some US traffic will bounce off to other places, to other countries, obviously. However, my question to you is, Damini, do you suggest to our audience today and to the student community at large who are planning to go to the US, do you suggest they look at other countries right now, or do you suggest they wait and defer their admission and go to the US next year? What do you think is a better plan there?
Nilanjan, I think that is a very subjective question because, sometimes, let's say, I have decided, for example, as a student, if I want to go to Cornell, you can't really give me alternates to that. If I want to go to Cornell, I want to go to Cornell, right? If it is not this year, probably next year, right? So I think people sometimes are more particular about the program. They are very particular about the university, sometimes about the country. So it's probably not that they are going to look for alternates, those who are very fixed on the program or the university. But again, if you're there are some of, as I when we did survey, there is another thing which I noticed is that there are two categories of people. One who have a job right now and they were planning to go to study abroad, and the second who are currently studying, just graduated, and they didn't had a break or they didn't had a job, so the only thing on their mind was to go abroad. So for those students, sorry, I think there's someone on. Okay. Yeah. So for those students, I think those who didn't had a job, for them, they don't want to waste a year or a semester. So when US is not happening for them, they have started applying to other countries. Canada mostly, right? Because that's closer to the US and offers good opportunities. But those who had a job, and were planning to go to the US, I think many of them have decided to take another 6 months or another year and decide on that. So I think it's a subjective decision. Everyone is handling it differently. But again, if you do not have a job and you do not want to waste your time, probably you can choose another country, because US is not going to happen this year, of course, not this year as in this semester. So the next possible choice is probably spring. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I think again, at the sound of at the expense of sounding like I'm agreeing to everything you are saying, I do agree that it's a very subjective question at a very individual goal level. Um, Having said that, if you are very gung ho on going to the US, obviously there are a lot of good reasons why the US is such a higher education powerhouse. So if you do want to go to the US and you have your eyes fixed on the US, um, it may be a good idea to take a gap year and use that time. And in my opinion, as long as you use that one gap year in a constructive way, doing online courses or learning a new programming language or doing an internship somewhere, or well, I guess traveling the world is not that much of an option anymore. But even traveling, immersing yourself in different cultures, learning a new language, however constructively you can use the next 1 year, it will end up not hurting you in the long run. So if your worry is that I lose a year, that means I get to start working a year later, I enter the labor market a year later, all of those worries, I don't think those should be your major area of concern. I think if you are thinking about the US, the US fall 20 looks like a big question mark. So try for fall 21 and use that 1 year in learning a new language, programming language, doing certifications online, doing an internship and things like that, or doing some research with your professors, stuff like that. So now that we are talking about the US admissions deferral and all of that, obviously we will now talk about students who are aspirants who are planning to go to different countries. So from their perspective, whether they should do an online semester, whether they should do whether they should not do the online semester, whether they should defer the admission to next year, or whether they should switch the country this year itself. So let's get into talking about that a little bit if you're okay with it, and I will obviously invite you to share your thoughts first on that.
Sure, Nilanjan. So, coming to first about the deferment part, because I think that's the first thought that came to the mind of a lot of students. Because even though countries are opening up, let's say Germany, which is gonna start its program in October, students are still thinking, because parents are little skeptical about sending their kids away in such a situation, right? So a lot of people are thinking of deferring their intake. So with deferring, I want to highlight one thing, that not all the universities are allowing students to defer their admissions. Reason being, universities understand that post COVID, the admissions are going to become a little more competitive. So if this year's students come into picture the next year, it's gonna become little difficult for them to accommodate them, because they're gonna definitely receive more number of applications. So today itself, I was reading one report which said that the international students mobility is reduced by almost 70%, and 50% of that will shift to next year, which means next year they're expecting 150% of the regular numbers, which means all the universities are going to become more competitive, they're going to receive more number of applications. So that's why they're not allowing deferring. And even if you are able to, if you are able to defer, I think that will probably be a good option. If you're not going this year, and instead of canceling your admission, better to defer that. And that is probably, but keep in mind, if you cancel your admission, you probably will not be able to, you may not be able to get admission to the same university, or your ambitious university next year, because it's going to become harder. Now, coming to the online semester, I don't think that's a very bad idea, but again, as I told you, it's a subjective condition, question. It depends on what you were expecting when you're planning to study abroad, right? So I studied abroad, and I can totally relate to the feeling of these students. Before you fly, like 2 months before that, you're all excited about the new country, you're all excited about meeting people from different nationalities. So I think online is definitely going to take away that feel, right? So the feel of the orientation week at the university, and you see so many new cultural things, right? So I think when I went to study abroad, more than the education, it was about the experience part, and the exposure for me. And I think that's probably the thing for a lot of other students. So if that's your goal from studying abroad, you probably would not want to do the online studies. But again, keep in mind, if you're going for a 2 years course, this online thing is only going to be for a semester or so, right? So you will still have 3 semester to explore that whole university experience. Yeah, that's one of the pros of online program, that you study only 1 semester online, you save money on your living expenses, you still get the final degree from the foreign university. So yeah, I think that's probably one thought. So Nilanjan, what do you think? Like, I also want to ask you from the lending perspective, how are you dealing with the situation that when people are coming and asking you education loan for 1 sem online, are you able to manage that at InCred, or how does that work for you?
Sure. Let me share my thoughts. Let me just take one step back and um, uh, remind everybody to pay attention to what you just said a minute ago about admission cancellation versus admission deferral, and what the difference is, because it's important. An admission cancellation would be well, canceling your admission. You will have to reapply basically to get that admission again. You have to, uh, fill out the same admissions form, provide the same letter of recommendations, SOPs, all of that has to be done again to get a renewed admission letter for the next semester. And the admission for this year will simply go away. Obviously there is no guarantee you will get admitted next year, right? So that's cancellation, and that's highly not recommended. I agree to that. Admission deferral is, it's not a cancellation, they'll just push back your admission. So instead of going in August or fall of 2020, they will say start in spring of 21 or fall of 21. And that's a deferral. You will not have to apply again for admission, etc. And that is okay. I think, like I said earlier, that uh, uh, if you are not willing to change your country or course or university, and you want to go to that US or Canada, or are unsure this year because that university is not opening up, or whatever, because you are not sure of traveling, situation globally, and your parents are worried, you are worried about healthcare, all of it, whatever be the reason, if you go for admission deferral, I don't necessarily think it's a really bad idea. Okay. Now, coming to offline versus online courses, I can give you my verdict very, very simply. And that is that unless the online course is giving you the option of paying a reduced fee, as well as the online course will qualify you for a student visa or permit, or it is approved by the immigration authorities of that country, if these conditions are met, the online course is okay. All right. Otherwise, very honestly speaking, what you said, Damini, a big part, a very, very significant part of the overseas education experience is being physically present on the campus. Okay, it's a huge, you get to mix with people from all over the world, the brightest of the minds, from China to Korea to Argentina, Brazil to Europe to America to Africa. You meet every, you, it is such a vibrant atmosphere on most of these campuses, a UK or a Canada or US or Australia, that missing out on that element definitely will definitely take away from the overall experience of a higher education abroad. And therefore, from that perspective, an online course will obviously not be that impactful. It may help you get started depending on your personal situation, but in the long run, and for most people, I do not think that switching over to an online course is that great of an option. And if you do want to switch, keep in mind all the factors that Damini spoke about, that I spoke about before taking that call about jumping onto online courses. And then Damini talking about what InCred is doing, very, very, simple logic we follow is we want to help the student have a hassle-free experience, not only in getting the loan, but also completing their courses and getting a job later on. And from that angle, we will be okay funding online courses, etc., provided those conditions I said before are applicable. And the biggest one of those conditions is that the immigration department of that particular government should allow these online courses to be qualified for the student visa program, and also for post-study work permit approvals. As long as that is being granted by the country, we will be open to funding these online courses. Otherwise, we will take a very, very case-specific call in terms of funding an online course. If that makes sense to you, Damin.
Yeah. So I think, Nilanjan, one thing I want to add here, for all the participants is that, whatever you as a lender, right, from the credit team, and I know that you have got expertise in that. So when you're evaluating someone's future income and the employability and all those things, I totally understand that, with online program, that's where, your risk comes into picture, right? So that's exactly the thing which matters even for the student who is is going abroad, because if you can sense that they probably will have employability issues when they probably will not be able to recover that cost or pay back the loan. I think that's exactly matter for the student also, right? So if they are studying online, even they have to be concerned about the same factors, that whether my employability chances are lower, or whether my post study work visa opportunities are getting lower because of this online thing, because even in that case, even they won't be able to recover the cost of the education, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Bang on, Damini. We do not want people to unnecessarily get into expensive courses which ultimately give them no dividends at the end of the day, right? So, as a lender, our responsibility is making sure all deserving students get the money to achieve their dreams, and at the same time to ensure no student makes the stupidity or silliness of taking too much debt, and not able to repay that back, right? So from that angle, it makes absolute sense for us to watch out for these online offline courses and all this confusion that's going on right now. We will obviously do what is in the best interest of the student and their families.
Yeah, sure. So I think probably you should keep that in mind. If InCred is vetting your decision by offering you loan, it means that they have evaluated your future, right?
Yeah. We that's what we do, is evaluate your future a lot based on a lot of data, based on experience. So rest assured, we will continue to do all of that. Damini, I would quickly want to now, while we are talking about different countries and online courses, offline courses, obviously there are a couple of countries which have already taken a very favorable stance in terms of these offline online courses being eligible for visas and all of that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then I will, add my own views onto that.
Okay. So, yeah, so see, with online programs, the first concern for everyone was that, what if I study one semester online, and later what are my chances to be actually able to land on campus, right? So everyone was concerned about that. If I pay my one sem fee, what if I don't get visa after that? So do I lose that money, or, what exactly happens after that? So I think, that concern still stays, but then coming to the probably a little bit of the students who are pursuing online, governments are supporting them by day before yesterday there was not day, I think last week there was this article from UK government who mentioned that students who study one semester online, they are still gonna be able to get their post study work visa. Right, so I think that's the government stand on, probably to support people who are opting to choose them even in this kind of situation. Yeah. Nilanjan, coming back to one more point, which I think you mentioned earlier in this, session, is that people are opting for online program. One particular reason is that reduction in fees. So I think if that's happening, that's another way of how universities are trying to support students who are opting for online. That is, by offering them little lower cost, reduction by almost, like some of the universities have reduced by even 20% or so the fee, so that more and more people can opt for it, and at the same time universities can keep their enrollment numbers in somewhere in place, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask you a question, please?
We will do a question and answer session at the end of this session.
Okay, all right, all right.
So if you can just give us maybe 5 to 10 minutes, we should be done with our conversation,
Yeah.
and then we will open up for these questions. Is that okay? Okay,
Yes,
great.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Now,
So,
you share your thoughts. I think I was done with the
yeah,
online
yeah. So I want to spend a minute on immigration and things like that, definitely. Look, overall, foreign students coming into a country is a big revenue line for that country, right? So for example, Indian students pump in about $6 to $7 billion into the US economy every year.
exactly.
That's about so six. That's over 40,000 crore rupees we bring into the US market every year. Just Indian students, right?
Yeah.
Um, and a disruption in that revenue line means a lot of problems for the colleges and universities. They depend on this line, so they will continue to have a favorable stance towards international students. Another twist that has geopolitical twist that has come in is, if you guys are following the news, so China is sort of is at loggerheads with the US, and more so with India more recently. This may mean lesser Chinese enrollments into foreign universities in the years to come or next year. And China is incidentally the #1 exporter of students as on date. So if that supply line dries up, more and more universities will look at India to replace those Chinese students. So they may want to India. Also, next year, universities will obviously, what Zamini was saying earlier, that next year, a lot of people may apply, and it's true. So data shows that post a recession, university enrollments typically go up. So in 2008-9, when the last recession happened, university enrolls increased significantly during the recession and post-recession. And the simple logic there is that people who lose jobs or go into uncertainty about their careers, they go into colleges and universities to learn better things so that they have better job opportunities. As simple as that, right? So next year, there will be a lot of competition, there will be a lot of demand. The universities are going to lose some revenue this year, so they will be hungry to make that up next year. And overall, the immigration norms should be friendly. And we have seen that already. So Ireland, for example, if you were a foreign student in Ireland and you lost your job because of the pandemic, they are giving you 1,200 euros a month so that you can sustain yourself. Okay. The same thing happened in Canada. The Canadian government is giving 1,000 Canadian dollars a month to even foreign students who came from India or somewhere else. If they have lost their jobs, they're helping those students out, right? Australia government, they had a little shaky start, but then they decided that students can dip into their superannuation fund. Basically, if you are a student and if you had some part-time or full-time work experience, you have a superannuation fund. And Australian government let the students dip into that fund because of emergency created by the pandemic. Germany has been talking about giving interest-free loans to international students. So generally speaking, the immigration has been supportive in all of these countries. And what we have seen are two countries. One is Canada, which has already said the online programs are eligible for work visas, and they are for student visas, and they're also eligible for postgraduate work permits, which is a immigration system that lets a student stay back in Canada after their course and do gainful employment. So in Canada, up to 50% of the course can be online. I think very recently, UK, you just told me UK has also done the same thing, right?
Yes, yes, UK has done the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, so wherever the immigration policies are friendly and are open, I think there it makes sense for students and InCred board to focus on. And in the absence of such policies, so even in the US, the United States Immigration and Citizenship Services to do the summer session online. Typically in the US, they are very strict about online semesters, but the summer session was online. A lot of universities slashed the rates also, the tuition fees also, but whether the fall can be online, and the US government will allow it. There is no such news of it right now. And I don't think there is time for that to even come right now, right? I think that scope for that is over for the US. But the US also took a friendly approach towards international students, only because international students mean a lot to all of these countries, right? So that's where we are on the immigration front of different colleges and countries, starting from the coronavirus into the future, what's it looking like? I would like to spend a minute on President Donald Trump's proclamation of last week, actually banning H-1B visas. Want to give everybody a clarification there, what it means. Incidentally, it was 4 in the morning when one of my borrowers who went to Carnegie Mellon and now is working for a company in the US called Wayfair, he WhatsApped me 4 in the morning with that White House link saying that H-1Bs are getting banned. somehow I saw his message at 4. I went to the White House website, went through the entire proclamation, and understood that this proclamation of banning H-1Bs applies to people who are outside the US right now.
Right now,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you are a student already in the US on a OPT or studying or already on a H-1B, no issues for you at all. So it will not impact you. If you are an Indian worker, employee, say working at HCL Bangalore, and HCL was going to send you on H1B to the US, now they can't go. So that's what this proclamation about. Now a fallout of this would be, Damini, is that students who are already in the US looking for jobs after a course,
Yeah.
I think it becomes easier for them to find jobs now because of this proclamation. Simply
Exactly.
because companies cannot bring labor directly from India now. That pool has dried up.
Hmm.
So if they have to hire foreign skilled labor, they have to look at the people already in the US, which are
Exactly.
students who have studied and are there already after their MS. So I think it becomes good for them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
I
what,
think that was the secret behind it. Why Trump? One was of course the election agenda. The other one was that people are losing jobs, and the recession is something which is kind of going on right now. So to make sure that students who are graduating and people who are unemployed right now, so they can find jobs. I think that's why it was done. As one of the
yeah,
agendas.
yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's gonna become a little easier. But then on the jobs front, Nilanjan, I also want to add one thing, because what I have heard from students is those who are going this year and those let's say who are graduating next year, they're very concerned about the jobs, that will they be able to find jobs next by the time they graduate, or if next year by will they be able to get jobs. So I was recently reading this one report from McKinsey. Those who want to read it, they can just Google McKinsey US employment report, and that report clearly says that the tech jobs and the technology, or also the kind of courses which Indian students go for those jobs are not going to be impacted much. Mostly the jobs which are in the travel or tourism or hospitality industry, those are the ones which are going to see a decline even in the coming months, because of course people won't be very open to travel even post corona, right? So people are going to be cautious about that. So that's definitely going to be affected. But when it comes to technology jobs, as more and more companies are going to be moving towards digital modes, and they are going to look for more solutions, online solutions. So I think the jobs are going to increase, not reduce. So that's probably one heads up to all the students who are planning to go this year, or who are graduating this year or next year. Please I know as of now this is the lockdown, so you may not be able to find jobs if you're right now in the US or other countries, but it's not like the jobs are going to be reduced, and you probably that's not going to affect you long term. Yeah.
I again, at the sound of, at the cost of sounding like I'm agreeing with everything you are saying, I am agreeing with what you said right now.
Yeah.
And also, this is the last phase of our discussion today, Damini, is future forward, what the future beholds in terms of jobs, courses, colleges, things like that. I will share my views, but before that, I would want to encourage the audience today about these questions. If you have a question, we prefer you type it in the chat window. I am already getting a few questions, and therefore, if you have something in mind, please type it in right now, and we will get to it in a few minutes. Coming back to jobs in the future, Damini, yes, absolutely, I think so. So I have read this report, and I have been reading a lot of reports, tracking a lot of data in terms of jobs and unemployment rates, etc. For obviously, I do that very often in terms of my own knowledge, in terms of understanding which student to fund and what not to. And I have done it a lot more in the past few months just to understand how the world will shape up. So absolutely, I think that there will be I wouldn't say major disruptions. There will be disruptions, advancements in a lot of areas, and that's going to be healthcare. That's going to be financial services. That's going to be education. However, everything will be backed by technology. Technology will be what will be the main driver of growth for all of these sectors, right? And from that angle, we were already on a tech trajectory. For example, artificial intelligence, automation, cloud-based technologies, these kind of self-driven cars, robotics, all of these were taking a strong foothold in our world today. That foothold will become even more significant now. Okay, I think that people in high tech will end up getting really fantastic job opportunities going ahead as well. Even if you're not high tech, depending on, yes, hospitality, tours, travel, all of this will have an impact. So any programs related to those kind of segments can also see a downswing. But otherwise, STEM courses in computer sciences, information sciences, automation, disruptive technologies, education technologies, fintech, all of this will have a very huge push towards automation and remote ways of working, and there will be ample job opportunities open up in those spaces. Now, talking about the current situation, yes, people who are graduating right now, completing their courses right now, will find some difficulty in finding jobs. However, our internal data says something completely else. The few thousand students we have funded over the last 3 years who have now completed their courses and gotten jobs. We got in touch with all of them over the last 3 months over email surveys, one-on-one sessions, phone calls. And there were initially a handful who were getting a furlough or a temporary layoff. However, out of the 3,000 such students we have who have already started working, only 10 of them had a temporary job loss. And all of them, barring one student, has already gotten back to that same company where they were working. Matter of fact, one student got a job which was paying him higher now, post the pandemic. So our data says that people who have gone on to the best of colleges, and when I say best of colleges, I mean the top 2, 3, 400 universities in the US, right? I don't mean the Ivy League or the top 20 only. All of those students, provided you are good, you have worked hard, you have a good degree under your belt, your job future is absolutely not hampered as on date and also in the future. And matter of fact, in the future, it's going to get better for you. So that's what I can say, Damini, from my side. Back to you if you want to add a few questions, and then we will close it out and start answering these questions that are coming in.
Sure, Nilanjan. I think we have almost covered everything, right from, what to do right now, whether to choose to defer or to go for online semester, and also on the lending, the loans front, and on the job market. I think we have covered almost everything. Now let's, get to the questions and try answering it one by one. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, Damini, thank you. Thanks for your time. We will take questions now. So let me see. So I think, okay, so Badrinath had a question saying, I am from aeronautical branch. Which country in this situation will be best for me? Damini, do you want to share your views, and I can add to whatever you have to say? Or maybe I will again agree to whatever you said.
Sure. I think you can start because I didn't get the question completely. Maybe you can start with the answer.
Okay.
I'm just looking.
So someone wants to know, for aeronautical engineering, what is the best country right now? Okay.
Okay. Sure. So for aeronautical, see, I'm not probably gonna tell you about your program specific thing, but I think we discussed which are the best countries. So as we, if you're particular that you want to start your course this year itself, probably US is not the right choice, because we are already, in the month of towards the end of June, and your semester, probably the fall 2020 semester, will start somewhere in the month of August. So we don't have enough time. So overall, what we discussed is the countries which are gaining, are the winners in this choice of students right now at the moment, is probably Canada, Australia, New Zealand is what we spoke about. So Badrinath, you can see if probably Canada offers, Canadian universities offer aeronautical programs at some of the top universities. Maybe you can choose to apply there, or if you have already applied, then well and good. Otherwise, you can try for spring intake. Yeah.
Great, great. I agree, but then I want to add a couple of sentences there. You
Sure.
may, Badrinath, you may want to look into Netherlands. There are a couple of options there. TU Delft being one of them. They have a good aerospace program as well. And Netherlands is a country in terms of handling the pandemic looks okay. Europe as a whole looks better now than where we were 3 months back. So that's one option that you can look into. But what I want to really tell you is. Um, uh, your question is very valid, and it's difficult for us to give you very exact pointers. And what I mean to say is it really depends on your specialization and where you want to take your degree in aeronautical, right? If you are looking for I don't know, is it astronautics or aeronautics or what exactly you are looking for, right? The career trajectories are very, very significantly different for those. Also, look, although the major airline conglomerates, not conglomerates, companies, the biggest ones are Boeing and Airbus, Lockheed Martin, etc., come after that. Boeing and Airbus, they have enough demand for new aircrafts to keep them running for the next 8 to 10 years. Okay, however, a lot of those aircraft demands are, those orders are being cancelled or shortened, and I do foresee a short-term implication on those jobs and roles which will be directly into designing of aircraft, right? It may involve your simulation design, your engine design. It may include your chassis or the body or materials, anything that goes into building a aircraft. If you are planning to go into that, be a little cautious, because the major companies such as Boeing, Airbus, etc., may not hire a lot for those positions for the time being. That's what I can tell you. Okay, let's move on. I have a question sent privately. I don't know who sent it, but the question is, hey Neil, I have already got a loan sanctioned by InCred for my master's this year, but if I defer it to next year, will I have to apply for loan again? Also, I have paid the processing fee. Very good question. I wanted to speak about it earlier, skip my mind. But if you have paid the processing fee, don't worry. If you defer your admission, we will just switch your processing fee to your deferred admission date. You will not have to reapply for this loan again, but there will be some updated documents we will collect from you towards your new semester start date. And obviously, they will be your renewed admission letter. And obviously, the financial statements of your co-signers, they will need to be updated. So you will just have to provide some updated documents and nothing else. You don't have to apply again and all of that. And generally speaking, InCred has adopted a policy where we are taking whatever processing fee the student can pay us. If we understand families have a financial crunch right now, so if you are not able to pay us the full processing fee, we are taking a much smaller amount and giving you the approval letter so that you have the peace of mind, and you can also go for your further processes like visas and I-20s and all of that.
Nilanjan, I want to add one line here, is that people should keep in mind that their CIBIL scores will be checked once again. I think probably you missed mentioning that. So in the pandemic situation, when if you have if your co-applicant has some loans, please make sure that you keep paying that, or you avail the moratorium which is offered by some of the banks. I don't know what loans they might have, but please make sure that you don't do anything with your financials which affect your CIBIL, because that's gonna be rechecked. Even though your loan is approved right now, if you screw up your CIBIL score, it's gonna affect you later. So please make sure you have that in mind. Yeah.
Very good point, Damini. Thanks. You totally forgot that important point from my side. Yes, we will check your credit bureau or your CIBIL history. So from now till you take the loan for your deferred admission, make sure you don't bounce your loan or credit card payments, etc. If you have one, because that will negatively impact your credit history. And the lender may at the last moment next year say, oh, you are a CIBIL defaulter now, sorry, cannot give you loan.
Yeah.
Good point, Damini. Thank you for bringing it up. I will move on to the next question. Nishan wants to know what all factors one should consider before finalizing the country for MBA or MS. Little bit open-ended, and I think it's right in your sweet spot, Damini. You may want to invite Nishank to just come on to your platform and take this up there.
Yeah, sure. So Nishank, yeah, so see the factors, I think we have discussed a couple of those factors over this session as well. Yeah, so you should probably consider, what are you looking forward to? Is it a 1 year program? Is it a 2 year program? So, 1 year MBA is offered by some of the countries like UK, but then the job scenario is of course gonna take time to bounce back to normal. So 1 year is probably is going to be a little riskier, so you might want to opt for a 2 years program. And you should probably look at the countries which offers you a 2 years MBA or MS program instead of, let's say, countries like UK which offers 1 year program. And other factors are, of course, when can you start? If you want to start this year, some of the countries are not in right shape to take you as a full-time student. And if you want to start next year, then of course it might be too early to predict what situation US will be in the month of January, whether they'll be able to take it up as a full-time program, like allow international students to join for full-time programs, or it's still going to be the extension of the online thing. So I think that those are a couple of factors which you should keep in mind before you finalize which country you should opt for. Yeah.
Great, great. And I think if you need more information, I would advise you to get in touch with Damini's team. They will
Yeah,
point you in the
sure.
right
So you
direction.
can get in touch with us at We Make Scholars, and we'll be happy to help you further. Yeah.
Great. Next question from Badrinath is that I am going to pass out in 2021. Is it better to take my master's in India or abroad, or have job or internship here instead of higher studies? So I can quickly answer that. Look, and feel free to add whatever you may want to. Badrinath, I will be honest with you, barring a few programs such as, say, a PGDM or a MBA from one of the top business schools in India, there are very limited opportunities to pursue master's education in India. While at the bachelor's level you still have options, at the master's level it's really bad. And also India, out of all countries in the world, we spend the least amount of money per capita in postgraduate education or in PhD research, right? So PhD research scholars get the worst stipend in the world of all countries. And also there is not much research or not much cutting edge stuff, curriculums going on at master's level in India. So if you want to do a master's, my very blunt advice would be to look at other countries and not India. Okay. Now, your other question is to do a job or internship here. It's a good idea to do a job or an internship for 1-2 years after your bachelor's and then go for a master's abroad. In fact, that is an ideal way to transition into a master's abroad, is what I think. So that's what I can say. Damini, would you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered Nilanjan all of
Okay,
it.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So Siddharth is saying that his college has offered him an extra cost. First term is online. Is it still a good idea to go to Germany? So online, first term is online.
Yeah. So I think he's going for Schulich, and he has
yeah.
So it's gonna be one semester. First semester is online, and after that it's a 1 year course, masters in marketing. So is it still a good idea to go for Canada? I think one thing, Schulich is a good school. What I see, the kind of students they select and the employability, I am really positive on that front. And Canada, I think over this webinar we have discussed that multiple times, that Canada is a good preferred choice for students right now. So I think if you've got into Schulich and you have first semester online, but you're still getting 1 year to be on campus, I don't think it's a bad choice. My personal opinion, I think you can go for it.
Cool. Okay. Great. Thanks. I agree. I agree to you, and therefore I will not waste more time answering this question. Let me move on to the next question. Dinesh wants to know, how about US universities in the Middle East? Could you add info on those? I am not a big fan, Dinesh, of these transnational campuses. They have typically not done that good. So a US university campus in the Middle East, or a UK university campus in Singapore, seem to be doing okay, but in terms of the student quality and jobs later on, it's sort of been a hit or a miss from my own personal experience, and therefore I will recommend you to maybe look at the main campus of that university in the US itself, and not the satellite campus in the Middle East. What do you think on this, Damini?
Yeah, I think Nilanjan, I agree with you. There is an NYU campus in Dubai and things like that, but then, that could never compete with the main NYU campus, right? So I'm again not very positive of. I think there are not just the US, there are some Australian universities also in the Middle East. So I don't, those are not the first choice for students, but if that's the only thing you're getting admission to, then probably you can consider that. But then if you have probably chances to apply to the US universities directly, I would advise you to go for that. Yeah.
Okay, great. I will move to the next question. It is again related to me, so I will take this. I got my loan approval letter in March and only physical verifications pending. How now I defer admission to Jan? Uh, can I expect my admission letter in 2 weeks? So what will be the procedure now for disbursement of my loan? Okay, good question. Not a problem. We will be able to disburse. We already have put digital signatures and all such functionalities in place for us to sign the approval letter and things like that. So there will be no need for you to actually come to a bank branch or an InCred branch to get your money out. Matter of fact, we have just opened up our disbursement window, so we are disbursing as on date. Everything, like I said when we started this particular session, that we were already sort of a tech-led company, so we had online processes already. So it was an easy transition for us. We can disburse your loan. It's not going to be a problem. You just need to get in touch with your relationship officer in a timely manner. There will be some paperwork that you and your co-signers need to sign. So there is some logistics from your side that needs to be covered. As long as that is covered, we will take care of the disbursement. Don't worry, okay?
I think the next question is from Teja Sri. She is asking, I wanted to take IELTS exam in fall 2020, but I started preparing for the exam, but the exam got cancelled. So she's confused on when should she go for that. So Teja Sri, I think one thing which we discussed over this webinar is there are a lot of universities which are, removing the English language requirement, because for fall 2020, people who couldn't write their IELTS or TOEFL or other exams because of this COVID situation, universities are taking, are offering unconditional admissions without this English language test. But as I can see, you are still in your 7th semester. I think you have time to go for it, because I'm assuming you might be going for 2021 intake. So you have time to write paper-based IELTS exam in the coming months, or you can also choose to write IELTS exam online, which is happening right now. Only the paper-based exams are cancelled. The online is still happening. So maybe you could opt for that.
Great. Okay. On this note, I will digress a little bit and let you know that in the academic world, the universities and colleges have decided to waive off the GRE GMAT requirement for students. Also, a lot of universities have gone on to a pass-fail grading system instead of a GPA-based grading system. I just want to throw it out to everybody that we at InCred have already made arrangements to accept those kind of loan applications where a GRE or GMAT is waived, or the university is saying that even the English score can be waived based on your past English medium studies and whatever reason. So we are fully prepared. InCred is fully prepared to handle those kind of applications. So if you are a student who doesn't have an IELTS or a GRE GMAT and still have admission or are planning to go abroad, you can always inquire with InCred in terms of what funding options we can give to you. So that's one. I think moving on, I think last question from Vivek. I think we have sort of tried to answer what Vivek is asking is here, that he is a 2020 computer science engineering BTech graduate. And in this situation, is it better to get into a IT job or go for higher education? So this is this is the dilemma we have been trying to clear. Very, very, very case specific, individual student specific answer. But do you want to sum it up, Damini, for all of us?
Yeah, sure. So, Vivek, I think your question is probably the thing on mind of a lot of students. So, see, as I mentioned that when we did a survey on our website, people who had a job, they preferred to go next year. Reason being, they are not losing anything. They have so they have a job, right? So they can afford to defer their studies to next year. But again, coming to the other side of the coin, that is that university admissions, as we mentioned, may become competitive as we move away from this pandemic, because a lot of students who have, let's say, lost their job in the pandemic would want to upskill themselves by enrolling in some course. And also those who couldn't go this year would also be your competitors next year when you're applying for admission. So if you have already secured an admission this year for fall 2020 in any of the universities, please try to defer it, not cancel it. If you haven't yet applied, in that case, probably this you have already lost the fall 2020 deadlines mostly. But spring, probably you can try for that, because technical jobs, again, as you are in IT, you're from IT background. The recession or the job loss probably should not be the top concern on your mind, because as we discussed, that's not probably will not be applicable to your domain. Yeah. So Niranjan, do you want to add something or?
No, I think you have perfectly summed it up. I think that we have sort of overshot our time today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we will like to wrap it up.
Yeah.
A sincere word of thanks to you, Damini, for coming over today on this session and sharing your views with everybody here. From the entire InCred team and also viewers today, my uh, uh, thanks to you. And I hope
Nilanjan, to
to
you as well. I hope that there were a lot of things which you shared with people otherwise don't know, because when they apply for a loan, so here is the secret: Nilanjan is the one who decides who get the loan or who does. So yeah, so probably insights from him is something which should matter to a lot of you who are looking to fund your education through a loan. And InCred is a preferred choice for a lot of you, and Nilanjan is the guy who decides whether you get a loan or not. So I hope this was useful. So thanks, Nilanjan, for having me for this session. And
well, thanks for spilling the beans on who will sanction and decline loans. But that's okay, because I am actually running late to go and do that exact same thing that Damini just spoke about. So thanks, Damini. Thanks, everybody. Reach out to Damini on WMS portal if you have any questions. Reach out to InCred on our InCred.com website should you have any questions. We will conduct a few more webinars on this topic as and when required. So keep watching this space. Once again, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend and all the very best to all of you. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks. Bye.